The Journey of Natty Gann. Let's talk. So I was introduced to this movie by a dear friend, and I have to tell you that I watched this movie not really knowing what I was in for. Well, I knew what I was in for. I knew what was going to happen. I knew what the story was. But I was still moved. You know how sometimes movies, you can be watching them and you know where it's going and you can still be surprised. That's what this was for me. I was super surprised, even knowing I knew what the story was before I watched it, knowing what was going to happen, knowing some of the things. Still, I was moved by this movie. So this is a mid-'80s Disney live-action picture. And for those of us who are old enough to remember, Disney, their live-action department was pretty serious during that time. They had some really... They were family-friendly films, but some of them, had some edge to them in a way that not a lot of Disney live-action films have today. Things feel very much more sanitized, more, softer for family audiences, if you will, a little bit softer. And that's not this movie. I mean, don't get me wrong. Look, it's not the most raw and gritty situation. It is Disney, after all. But the way it goes about telling its story, it's a very simple story. It's about a girl who is on a journey. She goes on an adventure to reconnect with her father, who has gone across the country to take a job for work. This film is set in the Depression era, mid 1930s or so. So it's a hard time in the United States. People are struggling for work. A lot of people are out of work. They are, living on the streets, just trying to make things work. And Natty, she is a part of a situation that is struggling. Her dad is, trying to figure things out. So he's got to take this job far away, and Natty decides she doesn't want to be at home with her caretaker, the woman whose care she was left in. She's got to go get to her dad. So she sets off on this journey, and it's an amazing adventure in the vein of what you might see in other Disney live action films. It's one that's not without its dangers. Of course, there always has to be some threat. There's a threat going on. There's threats out there in the world. She's out there in the wild, trying to find her way, and it's not safe out there for a young lady her age. But it's good fun. It's fun. It's heartfelt, and I liked a lot the production design. First of all, let's talk about that, because that's your way into the time period. From the first frame, you are immersed in the time. Costume design is ridiculous. Everything feels like you are in the mid 1930s. And I'm always fascinated by movies when they manage to successfully put you into a time and place and not take you out. And I think part of that, a huge piece of that, is the production design. You look at any scene, like in a city, for instance, or in a place where there's a lot of businesses and things. You see the ads of the time. You see the signs and how they were designed, the clothes people wore and how the cars were designed. All of that type of stuff is, and how sort of undeveloped certain places are. It's still sort of, becoming that parts of the United States during that time. There's places that are still not all the way together yet. And it does a lot to put you there. The other way I think that helps is dialogue. And if you've read my review on Letterboxd, I talk about this a little bit too, but I'll mention it here as well. Dialogue, I think, is so critical particularly for period pieces. my feeling on some of the more recent ones of the last maybe 10 years, 15 years or so, is that dialogue it's almost too modern in certain parts. It takes you out, for me anyway, it takes me out of the time that I'm supposed to be in. So, and this movie is written in a way that you could believe people would sound like how they sound in this film. And it's a small thing, but I always appreciate stuff like that, like certain slang terms and things. Obviously, it's not 100% 1930s sort of lingo and stuff, but characters speak in a way that feels more authentic to the time. And it always bothers me when movies don't do that. I feel like if you're the writer or writers of that project, how hard is it to do a little bit of research and look at the ways people spoke, and the vernacular they used, so you could get the more tactile sort of energy of the time there. I always find that's pretty cool. Because my argument is this: if we can watch 1930s, 1940s films right now, complete with the way they spoke, couldn't we just as easily write films like that too, or write films that actually have sort of pieces of that in there? I don't know. It's nitpicky, but and it's not about Natty Gann. I think Natty Gann does a good job of hitting you in different places to make you feel like you are in the time period, from the production design to the costumes to the writing. That's really what it is. So you're 10 out of 10 there. The acting is also fantastic. For the film that we're given, for the story, it's not a complex story. It's a very straight through. This girl on an adventure trying to find her dad. That's really what this piece is. It's a family piece. Families trying to reconnect and jump. And also, that's one thread. That's the heart of the story. The other piece is you have a story about friendship. Natty, on the way, meets a wolf. And, they strike up a friendship eventually. I'm not going to give you all the details of it, should you be curious to watch it. But it's a beautiful friendship. And it's one that's for me, hits me in the heart. Get you right there. Get you right in the heart muscle and stuff like that. It's about friendship, and it's about companionship. It's about, connection. It's the connection between Natty and her dad. It's connection between Natty and Wolf, and you got Natty and Harry, played by John Cusack, he's a puppy in this movie. He's a young John Cusack, but it's really there's connection there too. So it's, you got a couple other threads going on. And while we're there, I'm going to talk about John Cusack for a second. Many of you might know him from a lot of John Hughes movies. Some people know him from I don't know. Well, that's a good John Cusack movie that people would be talking about. I don't know. 2012 was one. I don't know. I can't think of a lot of John Cusack films right now, but I liked him in this movie a lot. He starts off as kind of prickly, kind of standoffish, and throughout the film, you grow to care about him. You grow to sort of like him a lot. You have a soft spot for him, like Natty does. It's like we're going on that journey with Natty, and we feel about Harry the way she begins to feel about him. This guy's not so bad. This guy's pretty cool. And likewise, originally he thinks Natty's just like, yo, you're a kid, get up out of here, you're in the way. And he begins to like her too. So they begin to sort of mutually, gradually develop a bond, which is, it's actually really sweet how the film does it. It doesn't do what I don't like in a lot of movies, where you have a character or two characters particularly, obviously most of the time they're of the opposite sex, and these characters are pitted together some way, and they're always almost immediately thrust into some sort of romantic situation and stuff, which is fine, right? My problem with that is sometimes that doesn't always feel organic to, or even sort of remotely like how it actually is in real life. Not that it's obviously it's a movie, so it's not real life, but films are cool because they mimic real life in different ways. I think that's part of the for me anyway, part of the fun, part of the allure of films, the ways in which they can speak to the real, even though it's fake. And in that, there is a truth that makes it real a little bit too. So, I feel like the dynamic between Natty and Harry is more real because of that. Because it feels like it's more organic, and they don't start out as fast friends. It takes a little bit of time for them to warm up to each other, and I think that's it's well done. And the film doesn't give you what you think it's what you think you're supposed to get from that dynamic, but it does leave you with, for me anyway, I was left with the feeling of like, hey, there's an open situation. There's a possibility at the end of this story, somewhere down the line, maybe things might turn out differently for Harry and Natty. That's my 2 cents on the situation, but I thought it was beautifully well done, and I wish more movies did that today. Not a lot of movies do that. Yeah, they just don't. Things I had issues with, not major, they were kind of small. At some point in the film, Natty meets a young woman in an orphanage, and I think her name's Twinkie. I can't remember her name. I remember thinking like, wow, that's an interesting name for this character. But you really only get like 1 or 2 scenes with this other girl who is Natty's age, and I wanted more of that dynamic. You don't really see Natty interact too much with other females. You have the mother character who is taking care of her before she leaves, and then the girl she meets at the orphanage, and of course the other sort of authoritative women who don't really care about the children. Really, they're just they're like drill sergeants essentially. So that's is what it is. But it would have been nice to have her really talk about some real stuff. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be, let's talk about girly stuff, but just to have you get a sense of what their connection is, and that there is a connection there between the two of them, and they could have been really good friends. It's unfortunate that that is so brief. I wanted a little bit more of that, and the film gives us just enough stuff, broad strokes, for us to understand the gist of story stuff around Natty. Which is really, at the end of the day, we don't really need too much more. She meets different people along the way. That girl is just one person. She meets other kids who are sort of, on the streets, taking care of themselves and stuff, as well. And there's a world where, in a different movie, that's you get more from that. You get to, maybe Natty spends a couple of days with them. She gains a sense of belonging in the group, and maybe she loses her way and she goes, no, I have to remember, I gotta go get my dad. But whatever. I gotta go find my dad. She gets caught up in that. That's another story, different situation. But there's a world where, hey, we can get more of that story too. We can get more of the couple she met when she stumbles upon a couple at some point and the mom is the woman is pregnant. She's expecting, and there's a beautiful sort of scene between Natty and the mom. And the wife in there, and I think, but you just wanted a little bit more of that. So you get little tastes of other realities, other people, other spirits, and things that Natty comes across on her journey, and any one of those things could be expanded upon. So I think it might be nice to have some more of that. But ultimately, I am happy with the film as is. This is just me sharing some thoughts and saying some stuff about that situation. Other than that, I think it's a fun film. I was surprised by the end, how emotional I was. I knew how it was going to end. I knew what was going to happen, but I was still got hit me, got the waterworks and stuff like that. So if you are curious about this movie, I would recommend it, definitely. Watch The Journey of Natty Gann. It is a heartfelt family piece that has moments of levity. It has some fun in it, and has some genuine moments of emotion. And it's, I thought it was good. It was actually pretty good. Should you care to read my more expanded thoughts on it, again, the link should be here somewhere in the video, or you'll see in the description somewhere. Check out the letterbox situations if you're interested in that. Because there's always more to say about stuff. Anyway, yeah. So I think that's all I have to say for this one. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for spending your precious time watching it. And I'll be back. I got that list. You guys remember from the previous video? I mean, there's a running list of things to discuss. So I'll be coming back with another video a little bit later. In the meantime, I'm out.